Hello, everyone. Good morning, good afternoon, depending on wherever you are. Thank you very much for joining this interesting webinar with our strategic partners of Kepware, PDC. So this webinar today will be about the added value of using OPC Router and Kepware together, and we will be speaking about practical use cases where we use both of the products together. So this is a practical web session with just a few minutes at the beginning where we just introduce OPC Router and Kepware to those of you who have not heard about us before. So my name is Thorsten Weiler. So let us start that webinar. Thank you again very much for joining. And let's have a look who will speak today. So as said, my name is Thorsten. I'm the guy on the left, and I'm responsible for our partner or channel business at inray for OPC Router worldwide. And with that, I like to hand over to our friend Ole from PTC.
Yeah, hello everyone. My name is Ole Borvia. I'm Sales Director in PTC, responsible for Kepware product in Europe. And just a short from my side, I've been with Kepware and PTC for more than 10 years. And yeah, I mainly take a part of the commercial part. Jan, you're next.
Yeah, thank you, Ole. Yeah, my name is Jan Jebens. I'm at inray for almost 12 years now, starting in the project development, which means I implemented projects in the field on the customer side with our products. And now I'm in the pre-sales department, first contact for interested parties and also webinars. Thank you. Tahsin.
Hello, everyone. Good morning, good afternoon, and good evening from whatever part of the world you're joining or watching the recording. My name is Tahsin Tosun. I am part of the solution consultant organization in PTC Kepware, responsible for the business in Europe, and I have been with PTC for the last 5 years.
Great. Thank you very much, guys. So now let's have a look what to expect from the webinar today. Just a few words regards to housekeeping. So this webinar will be recorded, so you will be able to stream it afterwards and watch it again if you like, anytime. Also, I guess friends or colleagues of yours can still register to get the recording afterwards and view it if they are not able to participate today. Those of you who registered to that webinar and are watching now, you will automatically receive an email after the webinar, which will include the recording link. Further on, if you should have any questions during the web session or during the webinar, please feel free to type your questions into the chat. We will go through the agenda and through all the use cases, but at the end, we will have a lot of time for Q&As. So we then will read through your questions and answer them live in the webinar, but at the end of this web session. What else? If you should have any detailed questions where you might feel it can go too deep to be answered in that kind of webinar here, you just can shoot us an email. So if you have a question regarding OPC Router, you just send it to cc@inray.de, or if you have a Kep server related question, then you can send it to sales@kepware.com. You don't need to remember the email addresses right now. You will see them on the last slide of today's webinar. Just take a note and then you send that email to us with your question and we will get in contact with you after the webinar. So, speaking about the agenda today, as said, there will be just a short introduction to who's inray and what is OPC Router. It's really pretty short because we want to focus on the practical customer use cases today and not about sales and marketing talks. After that, our friends from PTC will take over and introduce PTC and Kep server. And after these few minutes, our friends Jan and Tahsin will go through 3 different use cases where they explain the added value of using Kepware and OPC Router in these projects together as one solution for the customer. And we will touch different areas like connecting to ERP systems and PLCs at the same time, how to increase efficiency by just enable communication between different kinds of systems, and also how to enable intelligent remote maintenance for production optimization. And as I said, after that, we will have a Q&A session where we will be happy to answer all your questions. And another information before we start with the inray introduction, for some specific points, we will put some links into the chat. So if there's something you might want to have additional information on, our marketing team will, during the webinar, just put some web links into the chat. You just can click these links or copy these links to look at that information during the webinar or even after, whatever you like. Okay, but to not waste too much time, let's jump into who's inray. Who are we, the guys who develop OPC Router? We are based in northern Germany in a smaller town called Schenefeld, somewhere close to the border of Denmark. And we are on the market since, I think, almost 30 years. So we say more than 25, but I guess we will turn 30 next year. So 29 years today. And we are a software development company focusing on industrial automation. So our focus always has been what we call today Industry 4.0 or IIoT or IT/OT connectivity or something like that, all these buzzwords. This is what we do since almost 30 years now. Again, as said, we are located in Germany, but OPC Router is available in all countries around the world because of our international distributor network, which is in most parts also the same distribution network that also sells Kepware. So this is how close we work together with the international channel and with PTC and Kepware as a company. So this so much about inray, but what is OPC Router if you have never heard about it? OPC Router is a software-based middleware. So it's not a hardware-based gateway. It's a software-based middleware which is installed on a computer and connecting different kinds of systems. So it can connect cloud systems the same as it can connect to different ERP systems, relational and non-relational databases, different kinds of machines. OPC, of course, this will be one of the main topics today. Other systems like printers, barcode readers, RFID systems, and also something like Office systems like Excel or Microsoft Teams or Telegram Messenger or whatever, or email. So a lot of different kinds of systems. And what OPC Router does, it enables not only the connectivity between those systems, but also bidirectional data exchange. So it can take data from one system and transfer it to another one. It also can manipulate that data if needed, like pre-calculate the data or something like that. But that's mainly what OPC Router does. So the power of OPC Router is connecting any kind of systems a company might have, no matter if it's an IT system or an OT system. There will always be one plugin or one protocol that OPC Router supports to connect these kinds of systems. What makes OPC Router special? I chose to speak about 5 things today. One is something that every software vendor says, operational simplicity. But for OPC Router, this is a really important factor because OPC Router is very, very easy to use. You can use OPC Router by just drag and drop technology. You can use it as a no-code platform, just using a graphical user interface to graphically connect your systems and exchange data. If you like, you can do scripting, but I would say in 98% of all the projects our customers do worldwide, they don't use any single line of code. The second most important thing of OPC Router is the overarching connectivity, which means what I told with the slide before, there's a lot of available plugins and protocols to connect almost any kind of system. So there's almost no system we cannot connect with OPC Router. So the diversity of all these different kind of protocols makes OPC Router the one single communication middleware you need in your company because you can connect all your existing and future systems to OPC Router. it's also highly scalable. So a lot of customers use OPC Router in the beginning for one single use case, like, oh, we need to get data from Kepware and then need to store it into a database. So maybe that's their first use case. So they start small with OPC Router, and then they find out the power of that tool, and then they connect different kinds of systems and also download recipes from the ERP and production orders and so on, and connect different kinds of systems. So starting small and growing bigger. Maybe just one system in the beginning, later maybe 500 systems in total, distributed across the world in different plants in different countries. And then OPC Router also offers functionalities or features which help you to avoid data loss and increase availability. So for data loss, there's something which is called store and forward. So which means if the data target is not available and OPC Router tries to transfer data to a data target, and that target is not available, OPC Router will buffer the data until the target is available again, and then push the data later into that data target. Regarding availability, we can also set up a redundant OPC Router system. So if the primary system of OPC Router fails, it fails over to the secondary system, which then takes over the process and with almost no interruption continues to transfer the data. We also can connect to redundant other systems. So if you should, for example, have a redundant SAP system and would like to have that connected, OPC Router is also able to do that. And a lot of our customers are using it to connect OPC Router to a redundant Kepware system, because the redundancy of Kepware is also important, because if you can communicate with your PLCs and cannot afford any downtime or data loss, redundancy is important. So OPC Router can connect to redundant Kepware systems, which makes it a very interesting tool also in combination with Kepware to use kind of cross redundancy between those two systems. And while speaking about cross redundancy with Kepware, I would like to hand over to Ole to speak about PTC.
Thank you, Torsten. So, to whom of you who are not familiar with PTC or Kepware, I will just give you a really brief introduction. PTC is a software company based out of Boston in USA. We are about 7,000 people, and we are specialized in doing industrial software for engineering, for manufacturing, and for services. We have the Kepware product brand and family is a parent brand inside PTC, and this is what we are going to talk about today. The Kepware, I think it's actually like inray has been in the market for almost 30 years. I think it's 29 years today as well, this year, and the Kepware team has been developing and maintaining an industrial connectivity platform for all these years. And today we are the market leader in industrial connectivity on the OT layer. And we have, with our support for more than 100 different 50 driver suites and more than 300 different protocols, we are practically able to connect to whatever you have on your factory floor. We are actually working in all kinds of different verticals. Manufacturing is just one of it. It is the biggest for Kepware, but we will also find Kepware as a connectivity platform in utilities, in infrastructure, and so on. And we are present all over the globe. Our major business is in Americas, but half of the business is today also going internationally. We have currently, when saying we are market leader, we have practically more than, right now, 200,000 servers, PCs or IPCs around the world running with active Kepware instances. That is supporting manufacturers, wind turbine manufacturers, or water distribution companies with data from their controllers in the pump stations and up to their central systems. But what is Kepware? Kepware is basically just a Kepware server platform, a pure software product that is a gateway. It's a gateway that translates from all kinds of different devices, PLC, controllers, databases, sensors, whatever you have on your factory floor, in your utility application, or in your infrastructure application. We can translate them and provide them with standardized interfaces like the whole OPC suite of server suites. We can provide MQTT data, REST, and so on. And on top of this, we have additional features. The Kepware platform is a scalable platform, so you can use it. It's used today in machine applications just to translate data between a PLC and a machine to the dedicated machine control software. But it's also used on the big manufacturing sites and actually handling up to 1 million data points through a single instance of Kepware server. And Kepware server is used to provide data. Our legacy is that we provide data to OT, to MES and SCADA and HMI and OEE system and on-premise MES, etc. But today we're also providing data directly into, let's say, insights. That could be IoT system. That could be OPC router. That could be all kinds of different platforms where you want to read the data. And to give you a little bit of picture of what are we supporting here of different drivers, this is just a brief overview of all the different connectors. I'm not going to go through all this, but you can see anything you find on a factory floor, in a utility application. We have interoperability drivers. We have proprietary drivers, the different brands, Siemens, Rockwell, Omron, Mitsubishi, GE, and stuff like this, plus a lot of these standard interoperability drivers like Modbus and IEC drivers, etc. So this is the big value for using Kepware, is that no matter what type of device you have there, spread all over your factory floor or in your utility application, you will find a driver that can translate from these devices up to a standardized interface. And secondly, we have been on the market for almost 30 years. It means you will also find all the legacy devices. We know that devices sitting in the industrial application last for many years. So it means that this is not only the latest drivers we support also all the newest one, etc. And beside having the connectivity integration where you can connect to anything, our platform also and provide standardized data for all the different client application. We have also inside the Kepware server platform a lot of additional features where we can do IT to OT protocol translation. You can do tunneling. You can log data into databases. We have plugins that provide additional features for high availability configuration. We have even interfaces for doing network monitoring integrations. And then we have also flexible configuration, both APIs and products, so you can easily do on-prem or cloud-based management and monitoring and configurations, etc. And of course, we have also special products, scripting drivers, where if you, in the unlucky event, don't find your driver in our list, we have scripting drivers where you can create your own driver, or we can help you do that. This was, and then from this kind of Kepware server product has a lot of different license models, depending on if you want to use on a small machine, or you want to use it as a centralized management tool for all your OT data. And so that's the whole idea about our platform. So yeah, let's say I think that was a brief and quick explanation. If anyone wants more details, we have an email that you can contact in the end here. And with all this said, I will let's go to the real interest of this event or webinar here, and I will pass it over to Jan to start looking into the use cases. Thank you.
Yes, thank you, Ole. Yeah, as Ole said, we will have a look at 3 different use cases, give you some general information about the use case, and then also have a look at the software, not the complete project, of course, but an example of how it's being done in our software, so you get an idea how it's being used. So the first use case is the integration of SAP, the SAP ERP system, PLCs of different types, as well as other field bus devices within that project, being label printer and so on. But the major task, of course, was to integrate SAP. So the customer is basically a leading supplier of highly engineering system in the automotive industry. And as I said, the task was to connect SAP and PLC for more efficient production, automation, monitoring of data transfers. So they want to see every transfer that's being made from SAP to the PLC and back in order to see what happens and what data is being written between the devices and SAP. So monitoring was very important here. They basically, they're producing car flooring systems just in time or just in sequence for the premium segment of car manufacturing companies. And for this company, short data distribution sequences are very crucial. So they have to ensure high quality and complete traceability and transparency. So the overall system here is SAP. Production parameters, raw materials, as well as the batch size is defined in SAP, and OPC Router receives the information, implements the communication to PLCs, and also the communication back to SAP for the production data. The challenge, as you can see here on the slide, is basically the automation of data acquisition from production lines. So PLCs belong to different machine stations, hydraulic deep drawing presses, transport systems, water jet cutting systems, a broad field of machines and devices. Then the monitoring of data transfers. Every data transfer needs to be captured, so it's transparent what's happening in the background. And also integration of different sources. Regarding the solution, of course, it's based on Kepware and OPC Router. So for the solution, I'd like to hand over to Tahsin to take the Kepware part. So please, Tahsin.
Thanks, Jan. So we will start looking at the solution from bottom to top layer. So we first start with the connectivity to shop floor. And that's where Kepware jumps in as a standard industrial connectivity platform, as a single platform to connect all different types of stations and the equipments that Jan has listed. So we're looking at the different types of equipments, but mostly these are Siemens controllers. So we are looking at the Siemens drivers. So quick note on Kepware, we have what we call drivers to connect different types of equipments. And these are based on the protocols. So for Siemens controllers, we have Siemens drivers. For Allen Bradley, Mitsubishi Omron, etc., we have specific drivers for those. And these drivers are bundled into suites for the licensing purposes. So for these customers that have lots of different stations, we have different suite licenses. In places where we have only Siemens controllers, we are looking at Siemens Suite and Siemens Plus Suite. In stations that we have mixed controllers, we are looking at a manufacturing suite license that bundles all different types of PLC controller connectivity needs. And quick note on the Siemens versus Siemens Plus. Siemens Suite contains all the Siemens connectivity, including the Siemens S7 protocol. But in Siemens Plus, you will also find OPC UA client driver and Siemens S7 Plus driver, which allows us to connect to using these protocols to newer S7 PLCs as S7 1200 and S7 1500. So it is possible to connect to these new PLCs with S7, but also S7 Plus as well. So we can use symbolic addressing. We can do tag generation directly communicating with PLCs. We don't have to deal with Semantic project or TIA portal project. We can get the tags directly, and we can also establish a secured and encrypted communication with these newer PLCs using S7 Plus protocol by having the PLC's certificate for the encryption. So that is the Kepware part that allows us to connect all different stations and production units of this customer has. And once the Kepware is installed and configured to get these devices, then the data is transferred to OPC Router for further operations, as Jan mentioned, connecting to SAP. So I will hand back to Jan to talk about how OPC Router is used.
Yes, thank you, Tahsin. Exactly. So our focus is, as I said already, SAP and OPC server. So when we're talking about SAP connectivity, there are different ways to do that, of course, with OPC router and other systems. So web service based when it comes to REST or SOAP web services. And when we are talking about SAP connectivity in this use case, we are talking about native SAP communication based on communication libraries from SAP, certified, and the communication methods RFC for remote function call, BAPI, and IDOC. So native SAP communication, as we say it. Then also, as you see on the slide, Microsoft SQL Server integration and different other printers, which happens very often that we implement communication to barcode readers, RFID readers, and printers, label printers of any kind. So that is the solution from our side. I will also give you a more detailed insight when it comes to the live demo later on, or the demo of SAP functionality. When it comes to the added value, value that we added for the customer here. Tahsin, I'd also like you to start, so I will take over then also with router and the demo.
Yes, absolutely. So we have already mentioned Kepware is used to connect different types of controllers, even though mostly it is a Siemens controller in the field for this customer. So the added value for Kepware is that it's a single standard platform to get data. So when you're working with different equipments, you will get the same data in the same format, regardless of the controller type. And then because this is a just-in-sequence type of production environment where the production order is coming from SAP that needs to go to PLC, and when the production is done, that feedback should be sent back to SAP. And after that, there should be a label printed for that production. So there's a sequence of order of the data stream. So it is important to have a real-time data platform. And that's what our drivers are doing, communicating with these PLCs. It's a real-time communication, it's a bi-directional communication. So we're not only reading data from PLCs, but also sending data back to PLCs coming from SAP and other sources. And with that, I will give back to Jan to talk about OPC Router.
Yes, thank you, Tahsin. And as I said, when it comes to the added value, of course, the integration with SAP, but not only in data flow, but making sure that it's synchronous communication, bidirectionality, secure communication, and make sure that the data you want to write down to a PLC is written down to the PLC over OPC, and that SAP gets the information that it has been written down. So synchronous communication, secure communication using functionality in OPC router that were added over the years is the major added value, because you have transparency in every data flow. There's no message in whatever direction that cannot be traced or is not documented. Also, when writing down information to the PLC and it starts producing, we collected the data, the real-time data, and pushed it back to SAP, so that enabled the customer to have automated report generation, data analysis, and reduction in manual input, of course, as well. So for the overall production process, that was much more integrated. So basically the result is more efficiency and control over the manufacturing process and transparency. So when it comes to the demo, let me quickly share my screen here. So everybody should now see my virtual machine. So what happens here? OPC Router, of course, has many plugins. One of them being SAP, native connection. So we're talking, there are different ways, but on the very right side, you see we're talking about native SAP communication, and data flows connections, if you want, they're implemented in connections. We have a trigger that is executing a connection, and we have transfer objects. So you drag and drop transfer objects, connect the systems by connection lines to design the data flow. And what happens here is I'm looking at a certain event on a PLC, on an OPC server that's connected to PLC. And once that happens, I will read the new product ID that is required on PLC side. I will call an RFC on SAP side. That's basically you browse SAP, you find the function group as well as the function itself. A function basically has parameters that you can maybe have to choose from, and then you see here the parameters that you get back from SAP. And if you enable it, it looks something like that. I'm running here in live demo. So, and if I'm now simulating a product ID requested from here, let's say any PLC device, the device connected, then this request is realized by OPC router. Oh, yeah, should at least be. It's realized by OPC router. So there's been a request, and then that number I requested is forwarded to SAP. In return, I get the production parameters as well as from another source, just to show that you can combine sources, information for the product and write it down to the OPC server and the PLC. What's interesting, RFC communication is always synchronous. We know SAP knows the message was written down, and we also know when we receive something. So we can also receive data from SAP. And we have mechanisms. Writing down information, this could be 100 values to be written down to the PLC. They have to be written down first. After that, I have to implement a handshake telling, okay, I'm ready. I wrote down the information that is written down to the PLC. The PLC will then answer me that it has received the information. So the complete circle of data flow is synchronous here. And for MES application, that's absolutely critical. And that was the major focus. And as I said, you always see what happened, what data is flowing at any time. So that would be, the first use case when it comes to SAP. So we will now hurry up a little bit and continue with the second use case. Let me quickly switch over. So I will just continue until and do the question answers maybe later. So use case 2 is a power tool manufacturer of high quality chainsaws, hedge trimmers, and brush cutters, so for forest and garden use, professional high quality products. So the company is involved with data acquisition and visualization for many years. So it has been working with OPC Router over 15 years, being a very long-term customer. And they basically see their advantage in producing their own special machines themselves. In this case, this tool manufacturer was faced with the challenge of improving the efficiency of its automated production processes to ensure the high quality of their products, basically. So they needed a solution for the production parameters, quality control, and documentation, if you want. So every production line, in this case, also has its own SQL server. So every production line has an SQL server that receives all necessary information to produce a certain product. Also planned products for the future. So a changeover is possible without being connected to other systems because it's stored locally in an SQL server. So that was a very interesting fact, to be independent, if you want, from network connections. And so generally here, the optimization of the automated production process was one challenge, of course, increasing availability. So as I said, the information is stored locally, no matter if there's an ERP system connected or not. Short changeover times, and of course, the local SQL server here, that was the major challenge to implement. When it comes to the solution, how we did it, also here, please, Tahsin, go ahead and you take the Kepware part, please.
Yes, absolutely. So as Jan mentioned, this is a power tool manufacturer that produces lots of different equipments. And this is a highly automated environment. So we are looking at many different controllers, even though predominantly it's a Siemens controllers. So we have lots of Siemens S7 controllers, numeric CNCs, motion controllers from Siemens. But not only that, we have lots of robots from Fanuc and KUKA. And we're looking at components from Festo and Bosch Rexroth. So it's a quite mixed environment, but we can again connect to these Siemens controllers using Siemens drivers, and also using the OPC DA client driver to connect the OPC server of these robot controllers. And this will give us connectivity to all these automated stations that produces the different power tools, and will give a single platform to OPC router to interact with these controllers and provide data to database and SAP that needs to go. And with that, I will leave back to Jan to talk about OPC router.
Yeah, thank you. Yeah, exactly. Solution from our side was many plugins, actually, focusing again, SAP was involved, SQL server, and different other sources like files, and we had REST sources and so on. But basically, it's the interesting part is the information stored in the SQL server locally. And as I said, we had also some other drivers like from the molding industry, the Euromap 77 companion specification was implemented. So that was the solution we offered. And finally, as when it comes to the added value, maybe Tahsin, you can also start here again.
Absolutely. Yeah, so for this use case, we're looking at, again, order data coming from SAP and local SQL instances coming from different production stations. So this data needs to be transferred to PLCs, because this is a power tool manufacturer and they produce lots of different models. So a station doesn't produce the same model every day. So there are lots of changeovers, and these changeovers needs to be quite fast so they can continue producing and start producing a new model, and they don't lose much time in between these changeovers. So the order info will again come from the SAP and the line's local SQL servers. Will then be transferred to Kepware from OPC Router and to the PLCs and controllers. And then controllers will have the recipe for the new model production. And this production information then has to be delivered to back to SAP, MES, and the databases. So then again, the communication and label information about the production can be done. And if they have also some problems in the production, they have a historical data information in the local and central databases. So they will have also a historical quality information if something goes wrong in the production environment. So that is the baseline that Kepware provides, a single platform for OPC router providing connectivity to any different equipments. And it is again a secure OPC UA communication between OPC router and Kepware. And we're providing a real-time and bidirectional communication to PLCs. And with that, back to you, Jan.
Yes, thank you. Yeah, also that from regarding the added value, of course, the improved data acquisition. We have efficient documentation and traceability, so all the data is captured and can be used for traceability and documentation, yeah. And of course, integration of SAP. So with the result of this, the solution enables the customer here to produce its tools more efficiently, higher quality, and better documentation. And when it comes to the OPC router side in more detail, what we did here is we are focusing here. I mean, we have seen the SAP access in the first use case, as well as the OPC synchronous read-write. Here, we can also react on events in a database. So collecting data with OPC router is very easy. You would say, okay, let's say OPC data to database. What you basically do is, I mean, you can quickly go ahead and choose using subscription polling whatsoever. There are different modes to do it. In this case, I'm using a data change trigger, meaning subscription. So I'm browsing the Kep Server EX that is connecting the devices and any kind of information. So in this case, maybe some current production data, let's make it a current amount. And that data I want to write into a database. So I do a simple insert and choose a predefined table maybe here. So
yeah, and I think, are you sharing your screen?
Oh, it should be.
I'm seeing the screen.
Okay.
Are you?
Oh,
not?
I hope so.
Yeah. Okay.
Me too.
Okay, that's just me then.
Actually, that happened a lot, so thank you. Yeah. So basically, what you do is you create connections here. Let me quickly give you an example, and then that's okay. That's the name, but yeah, and that's basically it. You would enable it, and the data is written to the database. So, okay, no, it doesn't want it here. And that's it. But we also have mechanisms once something happens in the database from a transfer object back to a trigger section here, we have the database triggers. So the data change trigger or transfer state trigger are reacting on events on the database side. I'm also choosing a database, a table, different columns that I'm watching if you want, either by polling or if you're using Microsoft SQL Server based on messages, that's called the service broker on SQL side. Very efficient way to watch a table. And I can also mark columns. So I'm watching a table. Once something happens, I read the information, write it somewhere, and also write back the result of my whole transfer to the database. So in this case, if this connection is successful, the database knows it has been successful. Or another example is we react of an event again on PLC side. I do a select and write the data to the PLC. And that looks like this. In this case, let me switch to the second one. I'm having a transfer state. So the table is obviously called production orders. So when I go here, I can quickly say I have a production order number, and I put that, I do some kind of change to a defined column that OPC router is watching. OPC router realizes it, monitors it, and it reads the values and writes it, to the OPC server in this case. So there are also, besides OPC and SAP, there are also interesting features within OPC router when it comes to integrating databases and relational databases such as Oracle and Microsoft SQL Server are widely used in the production environment. So yeah, that would be the use case 2, where with the features that were used within OPC router. So I will quickly go back and continue with the third use case. Here, this is a use case that is actually not quite finished. We're still working on it. It's from the mechanical engineering, machine building industry, if you want. So that customer wants to implement intelligent maintenance and predictive maintenance, remote maintenance, and as well as production product optimization. So here the task was to collect a lot of data from really many different sources, integrated into a certain data model based on topics to be sent to an MQTT broker. So collecting all that data was basically the challenge. That is really a lot of parameters that they want to collect, temperature, pressures, whatsoever, in order to see how they are correlating. Changing one parameter, how does it affect the outcome of the product? Because they are producing metallic components, but also have the surface of the components refined through finishing chemical processes. So there's really a lot of data to be captured, such as usage, duration, temperatures, pressures, any kind of physical sensor values, IoT data, which are to be sent to an MQTT broker and then analyzed by third-party software. So that was basically the customer challenge here, to collect all the data from the different sources. And we did that, of course, again, using Kepware and OPC router. And Tahsin, please go ahead here also and show it.
Absolutely. So before getting into Kepware details, I would like to mention one thing about how these solutions are layered. So in this use case and previous use cases too, and in almost all use cases that we have with Kepware and OPC Router, we're looking at a layered network. And I want to talk about that because now we're talking about a cloud connection, which is external to the production environment. But even in that production environment, we are looking at a layered network where in L0, we have the controllers. In L1, we have SCADA systems, L2, MES, ERP, etc., and it goes on. And each these layers have a firewall between them. So the corporate network doesn't have to touch the shop floor network, and there shouldn't be any direct integration between them. So when we look at this use case for an IoT use case, Kepware is typically in the controls network or in the DMZ network, where it's gathering the data from the controllers. And then OPC Router is sitting in the DMZ or corporate network, where it can interact with the cloud connection. So in this use case, so even though this is the IoT use case, the production environment is a traditional production environment. So we have, again, lots of Siemens controllers, but also different mixed use of controllers too. So we have again been using the manufacturer suite to connect different equipments. If there are also some smart and IoT sensors in the shop floor too, we can also connect them using MQTT or OPC UA to get data from those smart equipments as well. And then again, Kepware is providing a single standard platform to OPC router and making sure that the connection is secured. So again, going from one layer to another with firewalls in between, it is very critical to have a secure communication. So we are doing that with OPC UA and encryption. And with that, back to you, Jan.
Yeah, thank you. Yeah, what's going to say exactly? Solution from our side is the implementation of the data structure and topics with MQTT client. Well, was really more important to get the information provided by Cap Server EX, and of course, yeah, connect to Azure in this case, but could be any broker, as I will show later. That is what we did. And for the added value, yes, of course, go. Yeah, Tahsin, go ahead.
Yeah, sure. So we're providing real-time monitoring of the production environment in the cloud. So it will provide a company-wide or global-wide view of the production from cloud instances. And this is, again, a bidirectional communication. So you can visualize it and view the production status, but if you want, you can also control it from the cloud. The infrastructure does allow such kind of communication. And this will be, of course, in a standard manner. So regardless of the controller type, you will have a standard OPC UA tags in OPC router where you can add more contextualization. And that's it for the Kepware. I will leave the OPC router part to you.
Yeah, thank you. Yeah, well, actually, the added value, of course, the pre-processing of data, pushing it to the cloud, and yeah, real-time monitoring, of course, from our side, and providing the data for them to make data-driven decisions for the future. So yeah, that would be basically the result. Maybe quickly regarding OPC router, some interesting features here that we used. First of all, it is the third use case, hopefully connected. And yes, okay, so we are here. It is. Okay, so what we did here is, first of all, of course, we have the broker could be anything. If you are using Azure, you do have some helpful tools. You just get some information about how to connect directly, also with a manual. And at some point, you can also browse it here. So if you're connected, then you see all the devices that you registered in the cloud or configured in the cloud. And of course, at some point, you also have a connection established. And what we were focusing on here is basically you collect the data, you do it in a certain format with some helper. This is just a JSON write that you can use here in order with no code to create your JSON structure or program it yourself and send it as a payload to the broker. Could also be a Cedalo Mosquito broker. But the multi-data change trigger is one feature. It's not looking at a certain variable, but at a folder. On Cap server side, you see there is a folder, current data, having some OPC variables. This could be thousands of variables within that specific folder. In OPC routers, then, you would in return get an array of values that change. We were talking about subscription here. And with one connection, you could subscribe to 1,000 values and transfer them to any destination. That's, yeah, the major advantage of the multi-data change trigger here when it comes to configuring. And then you just say, okay, I make it productive. And then if you're connected, I don't know if I'm connected to the system, then at some point it starts, connecting to all systems and pushing the data to the cloud, and you would monitor here and see every transfer basically, and then it starts pushing a lot of data. And we're talking under certain circumstances, depending on the hardware, the network, of course, I know, but 2,000 values per second. We have, so OPC Router is not only focusing on MES, but also when it comes, for example, to influx, not used here, we implemented asynchronous communication here that allows us to also have 2,000 insert into influx DB. So pushing forward thousands of data points, inserts whatsoever is also possible. And that's what we basically did in this particular project. So that would be it regarding the third use case and what we did. So let me quickly go back, and I think we have some minutes left for the questions and answering. So where are we standing on that? No, Thorsten, do we have questions? I guess so. Or how are we going to do it?
Yes.
Okay.
Thank you very much, Jan and Tahsin, for showing the live real use cases and also the live demos and speaking about the added values of the customers. I think this is the important things, especially people need to hear who have not worked with Kepware or OPC Router before, or were just using Kepware and not OPC Router until now, or using OPC Router and not Kepware until now. So there are some questions, yes, in the chat. So let's maybe go to these questions. The first question was coming from Parween, and the question is, can I call OPC Router a gateway? So let me directly answer myself. Yes, you can. So that's an easy answer. The problem with OPC Router is maybe the name, because it sounds a bit confusing. Router, you might think it's a hardware-based gateway. Also, when I personally hear the word gateway, I think of a hardware-based solution for connectivity. So that's why I personally prefer to call it a middleware. But in the end, it's a software-based communication platform. It's same as Kepware. Both products are software-based. You install them on a computer, on a server, and run it as a software. So this was question number one. Question number two is coming from Akash, and regarding the store and forward mechanism of OPC Router. And the question is, for how long will data be stored in buffer for OPC Router? The answer here is, it depends on you. So the answer is you can decide in the settings what should happen. So if, for example, you say, give it a limitation in regards of disk space, like until 5 terabyte of disk space are full of buffer data, or for a certain day, like only buffer the data for 2 days or something like this. And then you can also define in the settings what should happen with that data then. So start to overwrite the first values or the last values. So there are a lot of options how you can set up your store and forward mechanism so that it fits to your specific use case. Question number 3 was again coming from Parveen. Can I connect with IoT controllers like Raspberry Pi or NVIDIA Jetson Nano? This I would like to hand over to Jan. I know that it's possible to connect to Raspberry Pi. I have never heard about NVIDIA Jetson Nano. I don't know what the prerequisites are to connect to that kind of hardware.
Well, that depends on what you want to do. If you can have file share if you want, read and write files. You can have web service communication, HTTP, or OPC UA if you're running an OPC UA server. Or maybe...
I can also add that I believe there should be a Modbus library for Raspberry. So in addition to HTTP, MQTT, you can use Modbus too. And the name, I don't know the NVIDIA Jetson Nano, but I know there is a nano profile of OPC UA. So there's a lightweight OPC UA without encryption that is meant to be used for this kind of small appliances. So OPC UA can be an option too with nano profile.
Yeah, and finally, just install Docker if possible, and then you can run any software, and then you just communicate with a native plugin. So with Docker,
Yes.
that should be easy.
Okay, thank you very much. So coming to the next question in the chat, coming from Jan. That question was about if there could be a documentation or something about the guidelines or details on how to run Kep server and OPC router together. So like a optimal setup of that. I would like you, Jan, if you're still listening, to send an email to cc, the letter C, cc@inray.de with that question. And we will be happy to send you what we have already about that, because I'm sure our pre-sales team will already have some information. We have some video tutorials where we speak about the configuration. I get that this is something we cannot answer in the webinar here, but please feel free to send us an email, and we will be happy to send you whatever we have. Another question was coming from Ralph. About the advantages of using OPC router instead of IoT gateway in the third use case. He already answered that he found the answer later, but yes, there might be some functional overlap, and it depends on the customer in the end what kind of solution he prefers. So he could also have done it with IoT gateway, but maybe it makes sense for his specific project to do it with OPC router, because then he easily can connect specific things he already has running in OPC router. So it's really depending on the customer which kind of way they want to go. Another question was coming from Odne. Is it possible to manage multiple tokens for OPC router running as an API server? I need to hand over that to Jan.
Multiple token? Well, do you mean for authentication purposes? The token-based authentication against the REST API? Good question. Let me quickly check. Well, I'm not really sure what is meant when it comes to multiple tokens, but you can have multiple endpoints with different authentications. So
maybe we can take this offline, Jan, and get a better understanding what's the ask here.
Actually, thank you, Tahsin. That's right.
Yeah.
Yes.
Yes, sorry.
Please also send us a quick email, and then we will be happy to answer that in more detail. Another question was coming from Morgan. Heard shortly about performance regarding number of signals and events in the OPC router. Can you explain some about this when it comes to maximum number of signals, events, database inserts, etc.? No. Yes and no. So it's a hard question, because there's no physical limitation in regards to OPC router. So from a licensing perspective or any other kind of perspective, there is no kind of limitation. The real limitation is really the performance of the system, and that depends on the performance of your machine, of the server, of the network, of the systems that are connected. So this might become the limitation. I know from a project which is just running right now that we are currently having a project where we write 2,000 data entries into an InfluxDB per second. So the performance is pretty good if you have the settings in OPC router set in the right way. So performance usually should not be an issue, but from a physical perspective or licensing perspective, there is no limitation. Another question from Adam. I noticed there is only barcode reader trigger, but what if I need transfer the barcode without trigger? I don't really understand the question, because you will always need some kind of trigger to start a data transfer. So there needs to be an event or something to start the data transfers so that the system knows when to do something. Maybe Jan can help with that question. Maybe I don't understand it right.
Actually, not really, because the barcode scanner would initiate the connection. We initiate the connection using TCP to connect to the barcode reader, mobile barcode reader, for example. And once that barcode reader would scan a certain code, it would send that code to the connected client via TCP. So we only have that feature. If there's any other desired functionality at the moment, it would be scripting only, I guess. Or please, as Thorsten said, send us an email to presales@inray.de in case I misunderstood it. Barcode reader transfer object, we don't have that at the moment. Yeah, we don't, right? No, we don't have the barcode.
Okay, yes, I meant barcode reader transfer object, not trigger. Yes, okay.
No, we don't have that at the moment. So maybe a script is an option, but we would have to take that later.
Okay. And then there's another question from Sidi Mohammed. Do you have drivers for VideoJet printers? Yes.
Yeah, sure.
Easy question, easy answer. So there's a VideoJet plugin.
Yes. Yeah, WSI and Cypher. Yeah.
And then there's a question from Nathan. Hello, how does OPC Router deal with array tags on the Kepware server? Is it possible to address specific items within the arrays? That I would like to hand over to Jan. Or Tahsin.
Well, no, not really. Well, because if you have in our regular OPC data access transfer object, if you're addressing an array, it would return the complete array. And in the next step, for example, if you're doing insert to a table, whatever, it would process that array. That counts for any other transfer object that is used afterwards. If you want to address them by element ID, you would have to configure it on OPC side by OPC tags variables or use a script. But usually OPC Router does array handling. So I could put them into a JSON object, pass the nth element of an array, and the output of that JSON and transfer object would give you exactly that result. So OPC Router does array handling automatically, but you can also access it using script, JSON. Yeah, that's it. Basically, yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
Perfect. And then a last question from Sidi Mohammed, again regarding the VideoJet printers. I think maybe he did not get your answer, Jan. So the question is, even the new one VideoJet printers are supported? So I understood we support the Cypher series, and what was the other one, Jan?
WSI are the two series. I don't know if they're new or not. I would have to look it up.
Okay, but these series are supported, and the other series we have to look at. So if you're not sure if it's supported by OPC Router or not, just send us an email with the VideoJet printer type you have, and we will answer how we can connect to that printer, which kind of protocol we can use. That's all from the questions. And on one hand, I need to say sorry that we took a bit longer than expected, but on the other hand, I need to thank you all for the very good questions and very interesting web session, also very interesting questions. Thank everyone of the team, Jan, Tahsin, and Ole, for their presentations and for their answers and everything. And thanks to you guys who are watching that. Thanks for your time and your interest. And you see the email addresses of inray and PDC on the last slide. So please don't hesitate to give us a call or send us an email with any kind of question or whatever you might have and you would like to talk about. And we can also connect you with our local distributors, depending on in which country you're located. So please feel free to connect with us. Thank you very much, guys. Stay healthy. Have a great day. Have a great week. And it has been a pleasure to being on that webinar with all of you together. Have a good time.
Yeah, thank you.
Thanks all.
Bye-bye.
Thank you for joining.
Bye.